Welcome into the 7220sports.com kickoff show presented by BYU Lotto and Rocky Mountain Shirtworks. I am your host, Cody Tucker, joined in studio by Jared Newland. The Wyoming Cowboys will take on the absolutely hated BYU Cougars tonight. 7 o'clock kick inside War Memorial Stadium. This game's a sellout. It's going to be raucous. It's going to be fun. You know, you remember that feeling when you would see that flag with that Y and just the clean blue and white uniforms and the evil Empire Yankee-ish looking crap, and your blood would just be boiling.
Oh, my head's spinning right now. Yeah, it hated. That's only one thing that I can think of. There's a lot of other words you could use in there, and I was kicked out of a BYU game in college.
Me too.
Yes, I was that kid. They told me that don't you dare come back because you'll be booted again. This was 1990 season. Yeah, second year, 1990. Ty Detmer, Mitch Donahue sacked him. Did a backflip, did the Hawaiian, hang loose, all that stuff. And yes, I had a few in me and got booted. And I did change clothes and came back to the game. Was not booted again. Did not go back to my student section seat, but
I was forcefully escorted out of Lavelle Edwards Stadium once. And that's not hard to do, so it's not like a feather in the cap. I mean,
well, it's much harder to do there.
I don't know. I mean, they get really upset with words we can get away with ease. Did not fly there, and I was narked on by the entire section. So I also did have a buddy there once that I can't remember the year, but BYU nearly returned the kickoff for a touchdown, and he was on a bleacher being handcuffed by the time that play came to an end. And I believe it cost $650 for a public intox ticket. I asked the local police officer down on the field where I could go get my friend after that 52-7 beating or whatever it was. And he said, he's in Spanish Fork, Utah, which is like 15 miles south of Provo because they didn't have a jail. 109,000 people, I think he said, lived in Provo, and they don't have a jail. Pine Bluffs has a jail.
But at one point, the only places you could actually get a libation in Provo was at a hotel in their bar, and there might have been one other bar.
You probably had to be eating too, I'd imagine.
Oh, probably, but yeah, like when I used to travel with them and they stayed right there on, in Provo, I was like, why do we have to stay here? I'm thirsty.
Why can't we stay in Evanston?
But Salt Lake, you can have some fun in Salt Lake.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So. Well, I remember one time there being, they had to sponsor you in, and we were there for a Utah-Wyoming basketball game, and for some reason, nobody wanted to sponsor us in. So we ended up paying like $18 a piece to get into this place. Our tithing, if you will.
But that was back when beers were only like $3.
Yeah.
Not the $7 they are now.
Yeah, that's true. So. And I don't hang out in Salt Lake. Anyway, Cowboys, Cougars tonight. Little damper on this one. We've had this game circled for an awfully long time, but I don't think any of us, Jared, expected to walk into this at 0-2 and a very unimpressive 0-2. Wyoming, of course, a no-show at Arizona State. You lose an FCS game at home to Idaho.
No show in the first half.
No show in the first half, and then you spend the entire second half blowing off all your toes, shooting yourself in the foot over and over and over again, which we'll get into that. But has this game lost any luster to you at all because of not only that, of course, now 4 teams have left the Mountain West Conference and are heading to the Pac-12, including Wyoming's arch nemesis down in Fort Collins, the Colorado State Rams?
It definitely has, because I would have been in Laramie a long time ago, already having my drinks. But it definitely has. And
kind of can't deny it, right?
But there's going to be a strong student section tonight. It's going to be raucous. It's a night game. There hasn't been a true 7 o'clock kickoff on a Saturday in Laramie in a long time. All the other ones have been, Friday night games that are later at night. So it's going to be fun. And you said it's a sellout. I just hope that all the seats are full.
Yeah.
We know that those are seats sold. But it's still going to be fun tonight, and the stripe out's going to be happening. And BYU isn't the BYU of the old.
No.
They're not that good.
They're not world beaters. For the first time in my lifetime, Jared, I think they don't have that guy under center. In your lifetime.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they have just pumped out one dude after another. It's hard to believe. At one point, you can think about this. Steve Young was like their 8th string quarterback behind Jim McMahon, who was number 1.
And then you go, I'm going to miss a lot of names here, but then you go through, Sarkisian, John Beck.
Yeah, Max
Hall, Wilson.
You could even say Federick, Doman. They've had some.
You're throwing some stuff out there.
But they've had some. Mark Wilson, Gifford. They've had dude after dude after dude. And we haven't even mentioned Ty Detmer, really, who won, aside from the game you were at. I mean, he won the Heisman Trophy. That wasn't an accident. They also, I think, we can talk about the history of this game, and we'll get into it a little more for sure down the line here. But I want to talk a little bit about, the departures of these 4 Mountain West teams. Of course, Boise State, Fresno State, San Diego State, and Colorado State all heading to the Pac-12. Jared, that bombshell dropped on Thursday. Still kind of wrapping your mind around what's going on. Tom Berman did put out at first Wyoming wasn't talking. On Friday, he did finally come out and say, hey, we are going to try and keep the Mountain West Conference together. A merger was talked about briefly. They're not interested in a merger. They are looking to the southeast part of the country, he said, Tulane, Memphis, Southwest as well, I would say, middle of Texas. They are trying to get those teams before they dip back into the Mountain West. So how do you feel about where Tom Berman stands? I can tell you right off the bat, I love it. Does it suck to not have these teams anymore? Mainly Colorado State? Sure. It sucks. But the Mountain West still has something to offer here. And now they have a bunch of cash. They're going to have a bunch of cash. Go get a couple FBS teams.
Well, I said it yesterday on the Roaring Repeater podcast that Tom Berman said everything from his heart. Because he is a true Wyoming guy. Grew up in Laramie, has worked at the university a very long time, invested a lot of his career in Laramie and fighting for Wyoming. And it's true. I mean, Wyoming fans are invested in the program. They have done everything they can to be at the level they're at. And he's not going to let it happen on his watch going the other way. He's not going down.
No.
He only has one way to go, and that's up.
Yeah, no doubt. And he kind of mentioned this here. I'm going to read a little bit about of what Tom said to Ryan Thorburn, of course, who did this Q&A with him. He said, I believe we are relevant, and we will stay relevant as an FBS conference and member. For those of you worried about those 3 words that drive me nuts, and that's FCS. We have no desire to look at going down. The state of Wyoming is not a place that goes down. We fight, we grind away to stay relevant. I think we will. What we can bring to the table is one of the most engaged fan bases in the West. True. We can bring to the table good facilities and improving facilities. True. And great, not good, a great Saturday atmosphere, game day atmosphere, especially compared to many of the schools that we're going to be compared to.
True.
Very true. So we're proud of who we are. We wear it with pride, and we're striving and will continue to strive to be as relevant as possible. I love it. I love it. And for those of you that are worried about the Colorado State rivalry and the future of that, which rightfully so, you should worry about it because most of my family's down in Oklahoma. Oklahoma State and Oklahoma have no plans to play anytime soon. And Oklahoma State, Mike Gundy says, forget it. I don't care. I don't care when we play them. Yes, you do. And your fans absolutely do. This means a lot to the fans. And I've seen a lot of emotional responses in the last couple of days, Jared, of I don't even want to play them anyway. Even if they're not in the league, I don't want to play them. It makes too much sense, and Tom Berman says it here. I believe the border war will continue. I have talked to John Weber, the AD at Colorado State, and I believe that's what he thinks. It's in all of our best interest that we play CSU in multiple sports every year. That's important too. Multiple sports every year. It's 66 miles away. College athletics has lost its balance, and we're traveling sports teams all over the country to compete. This is the one that just makes sense, and I would say let's just not screw it up, John Weber, Amy Parsons, Colorado State.
Totally am on board with that. Don't F it up.
It is, Jared, I mentioned it to you on the Roaring Repeater as well. The victory lap has been the most painful thing for me to watch Colorado State. I saw a good friend of mine actually post a clip of the Boise State CSU miracle a couple years in Fort Collins, and it said something to the degree of just a couple of Pac-12 teams after dark, and I'm just, it's aggravating.
Let them think it, because At best, it's a lateral move.
Yeah, this ain't your daddy's Pac-12.
Yes. So, I mean, let them have their – who cares if they think that way? Yeah. It actually makes them look worse and their fan base look that much worse. We already don't like them anyway.
Yeah.
And this – you talking about the rivalry continuing, this is just another added element to the hatred between the two schools.
Big one.
And it's favor Wyoming for sure.
As it always does.
And that's why I think this game against BYU today, it just got people that much more pissed off. Yeah. I think there's that much more added to tonight's atmosphere.
I hope so.
That has, and just a long day of really drinking it on, whatever you want to say, to add to the fuel to the fire. So,
So let's say, Jared, let's say the Pac-12 goes out and gets Tulane and Memphis, and let's say they get UTSA, your old stomping grounds, a place you're very familiar with, UNT, North Texas, a place we're going to be very familiar with playing the Mean Green next week. Say they get those four schools. Say the Mountain West goes out and gets New Mexico State. They get UTEP, let's say. Those two are a rival. They would obviously all be a natural rival with New Mexico. How much better is the Pac-12, the reinvented Pac-12, than the Mountain West Conference?
I mean, in their eyes, it's much better because of the markets for the TV valuation. But take that aside, not much. I mean, Oregon State and Washington State have great facilities. They just both did huge renovations because of all the Pac-12 money they have.
Yep.
So good for them. So advantage those two schools above everybody else for sure on the renovations and the facilities they have. Yes, CSU has a pseudo new stadium. San Diego State has a new stadium this is their third year in it.
Yep.
They still can't fill a seat.
Yep.
All the seats in it.
Yep.
CSU, we know, doesn't fill seats other than when CSU or CU and Wyoming come to town. So maybe it's 55-45 Pac-12. I mean, but we don't know what their TV contract would look like in 2026. It's a total unknown. Does the Mountain West's TV say it's $6 million right now? Does it drop to like 5.5 and the Pac-12 is 7? I mean, that's really peanuts when you're thinking about it. Yeah. It's not like it's a 15 to a 5. And I don't think they're going to get over 10 per school. I just don't see that happening. And some of that's just me thinking that, and then also what we've heard on other national people saying that they don't think it's going to be over 10 either.
No.
So,
Jared, where this realignment carnival ride goes, I think nobody knows right now, but I love the idea of just reinventing the Mountain West. I think there's plenty to work with here. I know basketball plays such a small role in all of this, but you still have New Mexico. Wyoming, you hate to say this too. It feels dirty to say this, but Wyoming can be a lot more competitive, you would have to say, in this. I know that just sounds cheap and horrible, but it's true.
But automatic bids for all the Olympic sports too.
Yeah.
Along with basketball is more obtainable now when you don't have, and this is if UNLV leaves in basketball, but San Diego State's gone. Yeah. CSU's gone because they've been really good the last couple of years. Boise State's gone. Those are your perennial NCAA teams. And an automatic bid is more obtainable. And let's not lie, it's fun when you go to the NCAA tournament.
Well, and, once again, too, you win the Mountain West. And, I think you mentioned it earlier. If next year was the possibility, I was talking to somebody else, they said if next year, for instance, if Wyoming was able to go beat a Colorado and they're able to beat a Utah, and then say you run through the conference and you win the conference, who knows? Your conference champion might be higher ranked than the Pac-12's conference champion, and you're still getting into the Pac-12, or you're still getting into the playoffs anyway in football. So, to me, I always used to say when it came to realignment, as long as Wyoming's with Colorado State, I don't care where they end up. I just don't care. But now, as long as Wyoming's an FBS conference and they're playing in the FBS and all is well on that front, it is what it is. I think we all knew that maybe this day would come where Wyoming's size would come back to haunt it, especially with what we've seen around the country. But in my opinion, Jared, Northwestern's going to get left out in the cold eventually at some point. Vanderbilt's going to get left in the cold. Rutgers is going to get left out. The academic model's shot. We're kidding ourselves if we think that Vanderbilt needs to stick around and get a piece of the pie in the SEC because they're in Nashville and because they're smart. We don't care. Nobody cares about grades anymore. And let's be real, the University of Tennessee owns the Nashville market anyway. Vanderbilt might be third or fourth in the college part of Nashville, not even counting the Titans and Predators. So, and do you think there's more Northwestern fans in Chicago than Notre Dame and Michigan and even Illinois?
Not only no, but hell no.
Not a shot. So eventually, I think a lot of teams should be worried that they're going to be left out. And if this Big Ten SEC thing happens, they're not bringing Vanderbilt for fun anymore. This isn't fun anymore. This is going to be grind them out, NFL-type stuff.
Teams that are never talked about being poached are the MAC teams. Which is kind of surprising because there's always a good one or two really good MAC teams every single year. And we just saw it last week with the upset of Notre Dame by Northern Illinois.
Yeah.
But you just never hear of those teams because there 12 MAC teams?
Yeah.
Why not think about poaching two of them that are on the western side over here versus the Ohio side,
They just get screwed so badly. Living in that part of the country, they get screwed so badly because of the big schools they're around. They're just such an afterthought. Nobody talked about Central Michigan and Eastern Michigan and Western Michigan when I lived there.
But why not talk about a Northern Illinois?
Yeah.
They don't truly have the Chicago market, but they're only 30 miles north of Chicago.
Oh, they're a cornfield away.
Very similar to what they're talking about. CSU has the Denver market, which we know they don't, but they're right there.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's interesting. I guess I never thought about that. And then, of course, when this goes down, you start thinking about, should they merge with a MAC? Should they have a scheduling agreement with the MAC? But if you think about it, and I know we've said this 100 times, and people are probably going to say, what is this guy talking about? Basketball in the MAC is dreadful. I mean, non-existent. It just is. I mean, it's amazing they even have a bid.
But this is a football conversation,
yes,
Cody.
Yes, I know. But, I mean, have you ever sat down and watched a MAC basketball game in your life?
Only when I had the over and hoping for points.
There was, I'm pretty sure the over wasn't 30, or the over and under wasn't 30 between Wyoming and Idaho. Vandals come in, escape with a 17-13 disheartening victory over the Wyoming Cowboys, then put out a video afterwards where they're dancing it up and yucking it up in the locker room, and that's deserved, man. Jason Eck's team had a heck of a game. He seems to be a really good coach, really fun guy, really motivating that team. I thought their game plan was terrific. I thought they played really well on defense. It was as good as advertised, and Wyoming was their own worst enemy.
They have an FBS defense.
No doubt.
That was proven in week 1 against Oregon and proven again against Wyoming last week. James Newby had 3 sacks.
Easy sacks.
And he's fast.
Yep.
But to me, the result of this game came down to the snap over Evans' head. I mean, he's 6'5".
Yeah.
Granted, maybe he should have caught the ball, or at least he should have pounced on it. But balls do weird things on that turf.
Yeah.
And it just got away from him. And that was the turning point to me that lost Wyoming in the game because it just gave Idaho hope. After Hoyland hit the 48-yard field goal, Wyoming has a 3-point lead. The defense gets to stop. They're getting ready to march.
Yeah.
You just had that feeling it's going to be 10-0.
Yep.
And, of course, it goes the other way. It's 7-3.
Yeah.
Because they give them the short end of the field. And to me, you nailed it right, shooting their toes off. And
boy, did they.
They didn't even have a foot left.
No.
Let alone just all the toes were gone.
9 penalties for 70 yards. Lost in that, I'm just noticing just now. Idaho had 11 penalties for 73 yards. I didn't even notice that part because Wyoming's were so detrimental. To have a false start on the goal line with a 1st and goal to go and then not punch it in the end zone when you have a 6'5" quarterback. I thought another big turning point in this game was down around the 35-yard line, they can't pick up a yard on 4th and 1 and turn the ball over on downs. It can't happen.
That's the thing. Here comes my armchair quarterback side of me. What are you in the shotgun for with a 6'5", 245-pound quarterback on 4th and 1?
I don't get it. Because they just converted a 4th and 1 5 plays prior. And guess what? It was their gigantic quarterback getting a yard.
But, I mean, football 101, I don't care what the call is, Evan. blow it up.
Yeah.
Go up there, slap the center on the butt on which way you're going, and follow that 340-pounder.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously. And have Driscoll behind you pushing you.
Yeah. It just getting cute. It's maddening as hell. That last drive, too, was just particularly unbelievable, unacceptable. It was just crazy. You get the ball back with 5 minutes to go at the 50-yard line, all 3 timeouts. And what they did was just, it was a travesty. And then we heard after the game that, DJ Jones moves on a false start when they didn't even have a play called. They were in there to literally try and draw the defense offside, which Evan was able to do once on that drive. But then they gave him 5 yards right back. You get a holding call on the outside on a 9-yard completed screen pass that takes you right out of field goal range. You line up for the second week in a row with 4 people in the backfield. It's just, you can't have it. Then you give up another sack, another 9-yard loss. A drive that was all the way down inside Idaho's 30, you end up punting from inside your own 40 at the end of that. And then, we talked about it before, the bonehead call of not getting the punt team out there quick enough to get a punt off to take advantage of the new 2-minute warning. They catch the ball at the 2-minute mark instead of the 2:01 mark. You would have got a timeout there. Instead, it's the change of possession, and Wyoming's out of time. I mean, they got the ball back with, 24 seconds? They could have got the ball back with damn near a minute.
And then, but when they have the ball back, he dumps it down to Scott twice in a row, 5 yards in the middle of the field. One's dropped, the other one's caught and tackled. What are you trying to accomplish with those? You have to throw it downfield, and I know that's only 15 yards for a PI in college. You have to at least try to throw it up and get a PI.
That's the other thing, the other bonehead thing that blew my mind is when they got James Newby to jump in the fourth quarter. They have a free play. Evan throws it into the stand, throws it into his own bench instead of giving anybody a chance to catch that ball. You got to heave that sucker right down the pipe and just see what happens. You're going to get a pass interference, you're going to get a catch, you're going to get a pick that doesn't count. Instead, gave nobody a chance to do anything with it, and it was just, the mistakes so far have been crazy, and we talked about it last week. I thought the second drive against Arizona State was so detrimental. They moved the ball. It looked like they were getting past the pick six, and they were going to find a way to get unrattled real quick and get that crowd out of it. Then you line up with 4 guys in the backfield again, and then you commit another penalty, and then you throw another pick, and the avalanche ensues.
And you look at these stats.
These stats tell you Wyoming won, just like last week's told you Oregon kicked Idaho's ass.
16 first downs to 14. Third down efficiency, 6 for 16.
Look at Idaho's third down efficiency.
1 of 13. Yeah. I mean, there were so many opportunities. And you nailed it, though. Shot every toe off and the whole foot.
I'm Cody Tucker, joined by Jared Newland in studio as always. On the other side of the break, we'll talk a little more about this Idaho game, put a bow on that one, and then get into the BYU Cougars. That game is tonight, 7 p.m. kickoff. The game is on CBS Sports Network, or you can keep it right here on KOWB. Welcome back to the 7220sports.com kickoff show, presented in part by WYO Lotto. When the Pokes win, you win too. Learn more at wyolotto.com. That buy one, get one has not kicked in yet. Jared Newland, the Wyoming Cowboys, 0-2 to start the season. A very depressing 0-2. And then you get the news that Colorado State and 3 others are on their way to the Pac-12, and you have yourself a pretty miserable couple of weeks. However, the one thing that could turn that frown upside down in a hurry is knocking off the hated BYU Cougars. That game tonight, 7 p.m. inside War Memorial Stadium, a sold-out War Memorial Stadium. The game will be on CBS Sports Network, or you can keep it right here on KOWB, or follow on the 7220sports.com app. That's really what you got to do right now, right? I heard this week Javon Bonite had a very passionate speech to the team. He, of course, was part of that 2003 win over the Cougars, which, disgustingly, that was the last win over BYU. It's incredible to think about.
And I do know that there have been requests to former players made by another former player to put together to present to the team, like 30-second minute snippets of their hatred towards BYU.
Beautiful.
And those will be presented to the team sometime tomorrow.
Oh, beautiful.
Or today.
Yeah.
And before they head to the stadium when they're still in the hotel.
Glad to hear that. That's great. I've always wondered why they didn't do that. I remember asking Craig Bull before the 2022 matchup in Provo, are you going to have guys come in and talk? And he said, nah, they know.
Well, this player who said it, and I'm not going to say names, but I rattled one name and he goes, no, I need somebody who's actually going to say something about the BYU, not what they need to be nice guys.
Yeah.
This is the other side.
No doubt. So I was listening. I know you're a big radio guy. Jared, you listen to a lot of sports radio. I heard something the other day that really stuck out to me. Thomas Hammock, head coach of Northern Illinois, he was on a national program. Of course, they had the huge win over Notre Dame, first win over a top 10 program in school history, all that. Great job for the Huskies, great game. That was awesome. He was asked before the game, what did you say to your team, like in the team meal or in the locker room beforehand? He said, hey, fellas, Rocket Ishmael's not coming out of that tunnel. Nobody had a clue who Rocket Ishmael was. And then he goes, have you morons ever seen the movie Rudy by chance? Not one hand. And you know what? He said, good. They have no idea about the lore of this place and what this place really means. They know they're playing a really good team, but they are not going to get beat by that crap. It makes me sad for the world we live in right now that people don't pay attention to that stuff, and I've seen it at Wyoming myself. For instance, asking guys who wear the number 23, do you realize who wore that jersey number? Nah, no clue.
Hey, Cody, it's all about TikTok and Instagram today,
it is,
bro.
It is, yeah, it is. But it's, I thought that was really funny, and I thought that was really telling because I'll tell you, all 25,000 plus inside this stadium tonight know why they hate BYU. The kids on the field, they have to get this education, in my opinion, because you're just playing another game. People have been coming up and stopping you all offseason saying, win that game. You have to win that game. But they need to be indoctrinated. And there are so many reasons to hate BYU. There are so many reasons this is special. You talk to guys who played in the 50s and 60s. BYU wasn't even a rival. They looked at them like, yeah, that was a speed bump on the way to playing the Utahs, the Utah States, the Colorado States, and the New Mexicos of the world. Then you get into the Sugar Bowl team and all the Black 14 stuff. Then to make matters worse, a guy named Lavelle Edwards shows up on campus in 1973. Wyoming goes down the tubes. BYU becomes awesome. They win a national title. They win a Heisman Trophy. They're pumping out quarterbacks left and right.
Fabricated national title.
They become the kings of the WAC and then the Mountain West. And it's just, they're hateable because they're good and they win a lot of games, but there are so many other reasons. And this could be the very last time we see that program in this state, in this stadium tonight. It is really important to win this game.
Very much so. And, you said Lavelle Edwards. He has that one quote that still sticks in a lot of our minds.
Yes, he
I'd
does.
rather lose and live in Provo than win and live in Laramie.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, disgusting.
Is that arrogance? I like to think of Jim McMahon. I really try and like Jim McMahon, and I love he showed up to his Bears press conference when he got signed with a Bud Light and a fat chew in his mouth, and I love everything about him. He busted the honor code left and right. Not everything about him. I cannot get over the fact of where he played college football, but my favorite quote from him was his favorite part of Provo was seeing it in the rearview mirror.
Love it.
And I agree wholeheartedly.
And they, their fans think that Wyoming's despicable and all these things, that all these terms they've used. But I have witnessed BYU fans spitting on Wyoming players on the bench. I have witnessed it in Provo with my own two eyes. And if I had a camera phone back then, I would have taken video.
I was asked this week by I went on a bunch of shows in Salt Lake and Provo this week, and a guy asked me, have you ever seen somebody throw a water balloon full of urine on a BYU player or fan? And I'm like, you know what? That's got to be made up. It's got to be crap. But most Wyoming fans will take that with a patch of water any day of the week.
That was actually, I believe, in the early 2000s when they said that Wyoming fans did that. Yeah.
And I also heard I read something in a Utah paper that said Wyoming fans would light pennies on fire and try and throw them in the back of shoulder pads.
Yeah, and that they used to do that at basketball games though in the field house.
Ooh.
They would flip hot pennies.
Oh,
yeah,
that'll do the trick. Yeah. That'll do it. Let's put a bow on this Idaho game real quick.
I thought we already did.
I know. Did you take any positives away?
The way the defense reacted in the second half and really took Idaho, they couldn't do anything in the second half, and that was a positive to me. Shea Suianoa bounced back from having not a very good game not a good game at all.
Not at all.
At ASU. Yep. Had a really good game against Idaho. He wrapped up. He did things right. Andrew Johnson, he had a couple of mishaps, in there, but luckily they got overthrown one time for sure. But he made great reads, especially in the second half, and the fake punt he read to perfection.
Yeah. So, I think you're right about the defense. There were still some worrisome aspects. After the snap over the head of Evan Swoboda, they took a nap for about 10 minutes. Really troubling for a group that has so many returners and so many guys with miles under their belts. 9 tackles for loss. You look at that and you go, wow, great. That's nice. 1 sack. Jack Wagner, the starting quarterback, the backup quarterback for Idaho who started this game, 8 for 8. And even Jay Savell said in the postgame press conference, they took their foot off the gas, Idaho, meaning on offense, because like Wyoming teams under Craig Bohl, they wanted that clock to roll, and they wanted to go conservative in the second half and get out of there and escape with a win, and that's exactly what they did.
Third down conversions. Wyoming defense did a great job. Held them to 1 for 11. 2 for 4 on fourth down.
2 touchdowns.
But yeah, for the most part, they did a really good job in giving the offense every possible way to win that game.
No doubt.
And they just didn't. But what they haven't been able to do is create turnovers yet. No. They have got to punch that ball. I don't see any of that. They're just tackling. They're not going for the ball whatsoever. I do believe the interceptions are going to happen.
Yeah.
And tonight is a great opportunity because this quarterback for BYU has thrown some picks.
Yes, and fumbled the ball away. He is a very generous quarterback for sure. They need to take full advantage. Listen to Keone Sitake, BYU's coach this week. He is none too pleased with the turnovers from his quarterback spot, and the Cowboys have to find a way to get the ball away from them. Any positives on offense? Once again, Evan Swoboda struggles. 10 of 24, 126 yards. His touchdown strike to Devin Body was beautiful. 20-yard pass, it was beautiful, right on the money, in stride. Other than that, very off the target. To me, looked very uncomfortable again. He had a 37-yard run on the second play from scrimmage, and you thought, all right. I did a story with his offensive coordinator, Josh Barge, who played wide receiver here at Wyoming. He was his high school OC, and he said he is at his best when he is running the football and when he's moving in the pocket and bootlegging. We haven't seen enough of that. And I thought that 37-yard run might spark him, and it just didn't.
And at this point, you think sometimes maybe an offense coordinator is like, well, we don't want to show the conference too much because 0-2 in the non-conference, why show anything? You let it all out tonight.
Yes.
You roll him out, you run him until he can't run anymore.
Yeah.
And that I don't mean by getting hurt, until he's exhausted. You keep him going, and like you said, he gets in a rhythm that way.
Yeah.
He gets his swag going. And maybe you throw a trick play in there.
Yep.
I mean, you got to do something to get this offense going. They have to sustain the line of scrimmage tonight and get that run game going because it just hasn't clicked yet.
No, not at all. Not at all. And, you look at it here, DJ Jones, 17 carries, 80 yards, was sick in the second half apparently and didn't play much. That's still not good enough. It's just not. They rushed for 159 yards on 42 carries. That's 3.8 per carry. That's not good enough, especially against an FCS school, especially at home, especially when you have 4 returning offensive linemen. And I spoke to Caden Barnett this week, starting right tackle. Stories on the website. He had a really rough outing. Keyshawn James Newby blew his doors off 3 times, 4 if you include the time they didn't blow the whistle, and he lit up Evan Swoboda anyway, which didn't make anybody happy. But that guy had 2 sacks against Oregon, like you mentioned earlier. You not paying attention or getting him some help over on the right side? The guy had he timed the count. Caden Barnett told me that, and it got in his head. And he struggled mightily. But I tell you what, that offensive line has been challenged this week. They have not been happy with the way they have played. The penalties have been egregious. They've been stupid. We've just seen some stupid penalties we haven't seen in a long, long time.
This is supposed to be the strength of the Wyoming team, is
Yeah.
this veteran offensive line.
Yeah.
And they have not proven it yet, and tonight's the night they need to come out and prove it.
And easier said than done because they're going to be facing a bunch of gigantic old 35-year-old human beings that, BYU. There's probably BYU guys on this roster that played against the Cowboys in the Poinsettia Bowl in 2016. So, I mean, these guys are old, man. They just are. And they're old and they're mature and they have families and they're married.
6 years plus
Yeah.
2-year mission. Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah. Our guys are playing video games. Our guys are changing diapers. I mean, I get it. So, big one tonight. Easier said than done as far as that goes. What has to happen tonight? I mean, to me, you have to create turnovers first and foremost, and you have to get this crowd behind you.
Definitely, you cannot fall behind.
No.
I mean, if it's 3-0, 7-0, that's one thing, but it cannot be a 2-score deficit going into midway through in the second quarter. Wyoming has got to establish the run game, first of all, and then they have to do off the play action. And we don't know yet, as of when we're recording this, if Gillenborg is going to play or not.
Yeah.
Hopefully he is in there. That gives Evan one more outlet, his security blanket outlet, that is.
No doubt.
And he is a nightmare to cover. And BYU won't know how to cover him because they haven't seen him.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's a good
So
point.
that's where it has to be. But if Wyoming can get out to a lead tonight, I truly believe the defense holds that lead and Wyoming can win this game.
Yeah, I mean, BYU went on the road last week in Dallas at SMU and won 18-15. They held the Mustangs to 5 field goals in that game. They punch it in one time. They win that game. They beat BYU. Like you mentioned, this is not the BYU of old. This is a very beatable team. You haven't seen enough out of Wyoming to feel like it's a possibility. And that's what really stinks. You're scratching and clawing for positives, especially on the offensive side of the ball. These young receivers, better yet, these old receivers need to do something. Will Pellissier had a nice catch and a big gainer. It was probably the biggest gainer of the year so far, like a 30-something yard catch last week against Idaho. Alex Brown's been non-existent. Will Pellissier, for the most part, non-existent. Those guys have got to start making some plays. Devin Body hasn't. He leads the team with 3 receptions and 46 yards and a touchdown. 20 of those came on that touchdown catch. Will Pellissier, 1 catch, 38 yards. Jamari Farrell, a running back, 3 catches, 26 yards. All the way down at the bottom, Alex Brown, 1 catch, 6 yards.
And I do recall myself saying last week that TK King was going to make a play in the special teams last
Almost.
shoelace tackle, or he was gone.
Almost.
And that would have been a difference maker in the game.
Sure would have. Yeah. That's one that was really lost in all the disturbing penalties and misfires and miscues.
Oh, then he would have got 10 more yards down the field, and then there would have been hanky.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. Looking at Evans' numbers so far, I mean, he has as many completions as Wyoming has penalties. 16 of 39, 168 yards, a touchdown and 2 picks, and a fumble. He's been sacked 7 times in 2 games. It's that bad. Flip over to BYU, Jake Retzlaff, 35 of 58, 550 yards. That sounds BYU-esque. 60.3 completion percentage, averaging almost 10 yards a pass. He has a long of 57, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He's been sacked 3 times. His deal has been the fumbles and the turnovers. And I believe he started 6 games, and he's already thrown 4 picks. He's fumbled the ball like 9 times. I mean, you've got to get to him. And to me, I've said it all week on radio, Sebastian Harsh, this is your time. Show us what you got.
Pin those ears back.
Yeah, and he has had some moments, but this is one where you have your coming out party, and you get 3 sacks. You have a strip sack. You get the ball, maybe even you pick that bad boy up and you take it into the end zone.
Do you think that Jay Savell is at all this week mentioned to Aaron Bull, we got to mix in some blitz packages this week?
Has to. And we talked about it. Wyatt Eckler is an incredible blitzer. He got to the quarterback last week, and we've seen him do it. He did it 3 times against New Mexico last year. So I think Wyatt Eckler could be a real game player and a game breaker in this, but really I'm watching number 54. He has to have a big day. He's such a good player. And I mean, we see it in spurts where you go, damn, the penetration on that at Texas last year, he knocked them right out of field goal range last year.
And we know Bertinoli's going to plug up the middle.
Yeah.
Especially against these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and Florentine had himself a game last week too. BYU will be without Hinckley Rapati and LJ Martin, their top 2 running backs. But I mean, their running backs haven't gotten it going at all. Neither one of those guys even has 100 yards on the year. Miles Davis will likely be the starter, and he had a career day against the Cowboys back in 2022, over 100 yards. He was really good in that one. So, he might play himself into a job in this one. I mean, but they do have injuries there. So, but you go down the line here, Chase Roberts, their leading receiver, 9 catches, 134 yards, 15 yards per catch. And right down the line, Keelan Marion, 5 catches. He's averaging 17 a catch. They have a big tight end. I'm not even going to try I'll try it. Tavasi.
Nailed it.
Yep, tight end, 3 catches, 61 yards on 3 catches, 2 touchdowns. So they always have a big, strong,
Sounds
fast.
like Gillenborg numbers.
Yeah. They always have a big, fast, strong tight end there. Keanu Hill is a tight end for them. He also had a field day against the Cowboys in 2022 there in LaVell Edwards Stadium. So defensively, though, they have been really good, led by their linebackers. Harrison Taggart, he's all over the field. Jack Kelly, Isaiah Glasker, those guys are really good. And then Blake Mingelson on the defensive end. Either Jake Davies or Caden Barnett's going to have their hands absolutely full with that cat. And then Tyler Batty on the other side, he's really good too. He's been there for at least the last 17 years. So they are going to be BYU. They're going to be big, strong, fast, and old. That's what they always are. That's what they have always been. So you want to go through a rundown of today's games?
Yeah, real quick. Earlier today, Nevada at Minnesota, Utah at Utah State. So that's another game that's never going to happen again, most likely. In Logan anyway. Kennesaw State, the mighty whatever they are, at San Jose State. Just getting ready to kick off as we're on the air. Hawaii at Sam Houston. New Mexico at Auburn. Auburn's a 27-point favorite, and I would jump on the Tigers on that game. Air Force at Baylor, 17-point underdogs. Go Baylor.
Yep, Air Force gets rolled.
CU, as we all know, the Rocky Mountain Showdown.
The Rocky Mountain pillow fight.
Getting ready to kick off here in just like a few minutes. Colorado's a 7.5-point favorite as we speak. So if you can get that right before kickoff, if it goes down to 7, but I would take Colorado State with the hook at 7.5. If it goes under that, I would jump all over CU.
What did they give you the option of betting whether the band gets tear gassed?
In today's age, probably, because I think in the debate the other night you could, if there was going to be a handshake or not. So why not? San Diego State at Cal. Cal's a 17.5-point favorite. San Diego State can't score.
No.
And then to the pack after dark, I guess as the newbies like to say, New Mexico State at Fresno State. Fresno State minus 19. I'd take the Bulldogs in that one myself.
How about a shout-out to San Jose State in their start? They're off this week, but they went into Colorado Springs for the first time ever last week, knocked off Air Force. Kin Neomatalolo, I'm sure Troy Calhoun wasn't thrilled to see him enter the Mountain West Conference. All he does is go right back down to beat up on the Falcons. And San Jose State, what do you know, 2-0 out of the gate with him. And I wondered what Coach Ken, what his offense was going to look like. He's ran an option for 100 years, and he's come in and done a fine job. They have a nice quarterback there at San Jose State who's doing really good things.
Yeah, that was fun to watch because you know how I dislike Air Force.
We need Air Force right now, though. We need them.
We don't need Troy Calhoun, though. Different leader.
We need Air Force to stick around and be loyal members of the Mountain West Conference. What about some big games around the country this week? I don't know if you just took it off your screen
I'm getting it back. Alabama at Wisconsin, which you don't see a SEC team go to a Big Ten, even though we did last week with Texas at Arizona or at Michigan. But I mean, first year in the SEC. Come on, that schedule was done a long time ago.
Yeah.
Oklahoma State at Tulsa. Game day today was at South Carolina for the LSU game, which was already happened. Boston College at Mizzou. Mizzou's ranked 6th in the country.
They're pretty good.
And that's a team that Wyoming knocked off not that long ago.
Yeah.
Oregon State we talked about. Washington State in Seattle.
Ducks and Huskies, roll, baby.
Notre Dame, Purdue was earlier today. Not a lot of big games, to be honest with you.
Wasn't there a ranked matchup with K-State, maybe?
That was last night.
Oh, that's right. Haven't been paying attention, I guess. Well, we got a couple minutes here, Jared. What are your final thoughts on this one? Do the Cowboys come out of this one 0-3 and go into Denton, Texas next week winless?
No. Wyoming is going to win this game tonight. I have it predicted at 17-16, and that's because of the defensive effort.
Don't say that somebody's going to kick a
No. I'm not doing that. But a defensive touchdown or a special teams touchdown is going to boost Wyoming, and then that gives them the confidence to finish this one off, and the defense holds in the end for a 17-16 win over the Cougars.
I've had a weird feeling about this game all week, and I've been telling everybody within shouting distance. I have no idea why, because this team's given me zero confidence. Defensively, though, I really have this weird feeling that Sebastian Harsh is going to have a big one, and same with Wyatt Eckler. I think they're going to have a big one. I think they're motivated. I saw Wyatt Eckler stand behind the podium and punch the podium last week and raise his voice, show that emotion that I've been looking for the last 2 weeks, and that's about the only emotion I've seen. And that guy's ready to play. He's tired of this. He knows that defense is way better than they've performed. I think the defense is going to play lights out tonight. Can Wyoming score, though? My heart I'm betting with my heart on this one that Wyoming's going to win. If I was betting with my brain and betting the farm, there's just no way I could do it. I couldn't do it. They just have not shown me enough. But I'm not betting the farm, and there's no way in hell
and we're homers.
There's no way in hell I'm picking BYU. I wouldn't pick BYU over anyone, let alone the Wyoming Cowboys. So you can forget about it. Mark it down.
After Wyoming wins tonight, he's not going back to Cheyenne. He is going to sleep in his car with a 12-pack of Coors and then get up in the morning and go home.
Do not give me any ideas, please. Make sure to check out 7220sports.com for all your latest Wyoming Cowboy news, up to date. A lot on there this week, folks. This has been the 7220sports.com kickoff show presented by Wild Lotto and Rocky Mountain Shirtworks. Thank you for joining us. For Jared Newland, I'm Cody Tucker. Stay tuned for Wyoming football next, right here on KOWB.
My soul, my thoughts, my own.